Good morning, good morning. Happy Wednesday, February the 15th. This is Roxanne Harris, the Audacious Wellness Warrior, joined by the ever lovely Robin Parr and special guest, Gudla Bauer, who is going to be a fantastic wealth of information and a lot of fun today. So make sure you invite your friends and enable your comments so that we can hear from you throughout the show. Grab a cup of coffee or tea or water, kombucha. Everything is figure outable. That's my mug today. I love that saying. Everything is figure outable. There's actually a book by that title, so you can check it out. The lady that wrote the book was writing about her mother, who she was a single mom way back in the day. And the mom would just figure out how to do everything. She worked, I think, a number of jobs. And she had this little tiny orange, I think it was like a Tropicana orange radio. And that radio was on all the time. Everywhere the mother was, you just had to listen for the sound of the radio. One day she came home and there was no sound of the radio and she was freaking out, thinking something had happened to her mother. And when she went in the house, the radio was disassembled in like 100,000 pieces. And her mom was figuring out how to fix it because it had stopped working. And lo and behold, she did. So everything is figure outable. Welcome to the show and thanks for joining us. And today we're going to talk about happiness and joy and living a life full out. And I'm going to read very briefly from my book, Audaciously Alive, and then we're going to jump in. Life is too short to put on hold. You may not get a tomorrow. The fact that you are reading this means you woke up today and discovered that you were breathing. Automatically, your response should be, hallelujah, I'm alive. It's a great day. Because the 6 foot under alternative is not a better option. And so, if you find yourself consumed by pain, change your focus, reevaluate your mood, get up, move your body. When we move our body, our energy increases and our mood naturally improves. Movement creates change because it forces us to shift our focus. Do a happy dance in your chair, rock out to your favorite song, go outside, take a walk. Movement is life. And so welcome to the show. And Gudla, let's launch off with that. Life is too short to put on hold. What is your background and what makes you an expert in living your life bold, out loud, unconditionally well, and not putting anything on hold?
Okay, I have to start a little earlier than that, than becoming a dairy farmer. I was 29 when my first husband committed suicide. And the whole blame game, left, right, and center, the partner's always at fault and whatever got put onto me. And I had a choice. I had 2 little kids, 5 and 6 years old. And I have to make it work for those guys. I had to make sure that they can live the best life, a happy life, without feeling that my first husband killed himself because of them. I had to explain to them that they kind of needed to see him as a person that had a disease, that he was sick and that he wasn't happy. And from then on, my life took, the focus was on kind of taking care of the kids. So I became partner in a dairy farm, met my second husband. And life didn't go that easy because we got, as a couple, quite blamed, or we weren't allowed to be happy because, the first husband committed suicide. And there was so much shame being put on us that we just withdrew. We were our little tiny family and wanted to be happy and needed to survive in that environment initially. Until years later, I started my Halkens treatment, and finally someone said, you can be happy. There's no reason why you can't happy. That's just in your mind. It is literally a choice within to be happy. And from then on, I started studying Heilkunst. I switched from a conventional system in our dairy barn to an absolutely holistic one when it came to medicines. And I just knew there's a different way. I can do this different, even if other people disagree. It doesn't really matter. It really, you can, well, they could F off. Literally, they could just stay away. I don't need them if they couldn't be happy for a new beginning we wanted to create. And well, life didn't stop there. You get tested again and again. 10 years later, or actually 15 years later, my husband had a huge accident that nearly took him away from us. And he was in hospital for a good 6 months. He had broken nearly every bone in his body, but he survived.
Yeah.
I have him back like 90% to what he was before. But one of the issues we have is a mental short-term memory problem. We are constantly trying to work with, because you can't just be angry about someone who can't remember that what they said 5 minutes before and they forget again. And you have to take it with a piece of humor, and you just remind them, hey, honey, this is number 3. I got it. And it's just, but you work with it, you grow into it. And as long as you always put yourself and see that you love this person, you loved him before and you still love him, and it's just something you can work with now, that you don't have to be angry about shit happening to you. Shit happens, and you just make the best out of it.
Well, it's true. And I love how you said create your new beginning. And
Yes.
so there were a couple of things that stood out for me. I heard you say, like, if people weren't happy for you or didn't agree with what you were doing, they could take a hike, because you were focused on being there for your kids and helping them to thrive in that situation, with our father passing away so suddenly. And then taking that and purposefully creating something new. And I think that's not unlike, this, was a death that left you without a husband and a father for your children. But it's also very similar to an illness or a disease, right? You have to decide what you're going to do. And, don't let the naysayers in, and then decide what you're going to create and make a new beginning. So how difficult was that for you to just keep telling people to push off, and so that you could focus in on creating this amazing life?
Well, quite honestly, I avoided them. I simply didn't go to big parties anymore, because there was nothing nice coming out. The only thing we did as a couple, when the big dances were, we still would go dancing and stuff like that, just because dancing is such a big joy to me. But for the kids, it was... they needed reminders, lots of reminders that, for example, that they can love 2 people, like their dead, their dead dad and their new dad. That they have the capacity in their hearts, that the heart is so big that they can have both, and that they are blessed to have 2, because they can develop so many new choices and new points of views that they get to develop. My husband always, like my second husband always said, you guys, you need to know, you can ask me anything, and for anything, you have 50% chance that you're going to get a yes. He always went down there. So don't be scared to ask for something. Of course, you might get a no, but there's 50% chance, that you're already, you have a yes. And from that, you can build up. And so it's always the half full glass, not the half empty glass that we were looking at.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And so, with Robin, so you're in your second marriage as well. Your first husband didn't pass, but the marriage ended. So how much of what Gula is saying between hers, is resonant for you? Because we have a lot of our listeners are in second or even third marriages. They've got blended families, like all kinds of family dynamics. And so what's your experience?
Well, I think it's different when the marriage ends on mutual grounds versus a death, because there's a lot of pain that's associated with death. I think that people kids, even adult children, sometimes have a very hard time of letting go of the person that passed, and a new person can become, kind of like the enemy in some senses, because they feel like, it's okay, you're blessed to love two people, but sometimes they feel like they're not honoring their mother or father that had passed away, and it causes a lot of conflict in new relationships for parents with small children and adult children. To learn to gain to respect that new relationship is probably easier, I think, with younger kids than it is with older children, because there's more bonds built, and they understand the grieving process a little bit more than kids do. But with marriage that ends, I think it's more tricky, because they have the pull from the mother or father over here, and then there's this new person, and again it's kind of that conflict where they feel like you know um, they're say it's their dad. So if I love this new man, well, my father over there, I'm going to hurt him, kind of a thing. So there's a lot of dynamics around building new relationships with new people through death or through a divorce. And I think that the key to everything is just to love unconditionally and talk about feelings, and let them voice their opinions, and let them voice what they feel, and try and work things out as a group, as a family, instead of just letting them stew in their juices and say, well, this is what's happening now, mommy, daddy, or whatever's happy now, so you have to be happy for me. It's a growing thing that happens, and eventually the bonds are made. So
I think that's a good point that you made, right? Like, well, mommy's happy now or daddy's happy now, right? And so now you have to be, because we're in this new relationship. And, I think either of you can answer this, but I think it's really important to not replace the former, daddy or mommy. Like it's different, right? And so yes, they're going to be the new daddy or they're going to be the new mommy, but it's different. They're not replacing. And so how do you make, maybe you can both talk about this, but how do you make that work, and them seeing that it's different, but different doesn't mean bad. It can be very good.
well, I can add my new husband, when the kids were small, he always told them, I'm not looking to replace your dad. Your dad's your dad. He will always be your dad, and I'm not looking to replace him. But things that he did do was, he would go fishing, and he would invite, their father along to go with him, and they would do things together to try and create a new relationship, and say that it's okay, we're okay with each other, and you can like us both, and you're not having to choose sides or pick sides, things like that. In a death situation, I can't speak to that, because obviously I haven't been through that, and I would think that it would be a little bit more challenging, because that other person isn't there to include in the new relationship. So maybe Guda could speak more on that part.
Well, first off, you have the situation that if it was a good relationship with the like with my husband, there was not a good relationship between the kids or myself. There was a time when we were all of us scared that we might that he plans to kill all of us. So for them, like my daughter's first words after she heard that he passed away were, he didn't like me anyways, and she was 6 years old.
Oh, wow.
Like that. So I can only talk to you about an experience where we did a lot of healing. Like Cornelius is Cornelius to them and not dad, or was not when they were younger. Now my kids are in their 30s, and now they call him dad. Because he earned that title of dad. And we always, like we did, openly talk to the kids whenever they had questions about their dad, how he died, or why he did that. Or in the initial weeks, we put candles up so that we could light his way to heaven, and just to to give them a comfort that he's going to be all right. They weren't worried about themselves. They were worried about that he needed to be all right.
Mm.
And so that's what we supported. We talked to the school and told them, if my kid starts talking about their father having passed away, let them talk about it. And they did for a time allow that. And then other parents said, my kids get traumatized now. So, well, I can see that point too. But especially my son suffered quite a bit with not being able to separate between Henry's death and Cornelius being there, helping out. That was a tough one for him. And we had situations when he were between 8 and 12, when he was really in his in a very antagonistic kind of state. He was constantly so angry and so lost in himself that he would hide in his room and lock his door and thinking about suicide himself. And so we were sitting hours in front of the door just talking to him, explaining to him that he was a love child, that he is the best thing that could have ever happened to us as a child. So the support was more on into like making sure that he or both of them were internally getting their core strengths back, and so that they are not being so derailed from the outside world. Because there were situations like I'm in a very tight-knit German community, German Swiss community, and people were just not even talking to the kids anymore after that happened. They were you say they're shunning?
Yeah.
They were shunning them, like literally standing in front of them, and usually they would give them a hug and be happy with them. They wouldn't even look at them anymore. So for them to comprehend that people can be a-holes, and that they have no ability to continue supporting someone in such a deep suffering state, that was a big learning for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't speak about like that a loving parent passed away. I can just talk about that we had a bad experience beforehand already, and that the death of my first husband was for us a relief, if I'm allowed to say that. Yes, it was a relief, and years later I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that relief, and I'm and that my kids got Cornelius in his life, who was just supporting them for everything. Yeah, so I am tremendously grateful and rejoicing over that, because the kids now and the grandkids we have, it's Opa Cornelius here, Opa Cornelius there, and just best thing ever.
Well, and I think it's fair, Gudula. I think it's fair to say, looking back, it was a relief, right? It doesn't mean that it wasn't any less challenging or difficult. And there was all kinds of emotions, the kids, the new family dynamics. But, there's that silver lining. And I know that when we're going through stuff, it's really difficult to see the silver lining, right? The scriptures tell us, the Bible says that God uses what was meant for evil and turns it into good. But I think sometimes we just are so fixated on the bad and the negative that's happened that we actually refuse to see the good in that situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Right, Robin? I know, Robin, you've had some great challenges as well. And so how easy is it to see the silver lining when it's just so thick, so dark, so muddy, and it just feels like there's no oxygen, that you're being consumed?
Yeah. Well, I haven't been in Guda's situation, but I have been in some pretty tough situations myself. And I don't think you see a silver lining for a while for myself personally. I think that the relief maybe comes from that person isn't in pain anymore, and isn't deflecting their pain onto everybody else around them. It's like walking on glass, eggshells all the time, tiptoeing around. It really does affect everybody's mood, their life. It's very, very challenging to have a normal life when somebody is in such turmoil in their mind, um, because you do pass it on to everybody that's around you. But sometimes when the grief kind of smooths out a little bit and you're able to think more with a clear head, you can more think about things like that, where, and it's hard to admit. It was very brave for Guda to admit that. A lot of people would never say that out loud, and in fear of being shunned or shamed for saying or thinking that kind of thing. But yeah, after the trauma kind of subdues a little bit, and you have time to think about things with more of a clear head, you can go back and look at things like that and say, okay, this is better. This is better. I can breathe easier. The kids can breathe easier, or whatever the situation is.
Well, it's interesting because there's something that we do, right? When we reflect upon situations of the past, there's a story that we're telling ourselves about what happened, right? And usually the story is pretty depressing, pretty negative. We look for all of, whether it's negative body language, negative sounds, but we fixate on those things. And I think as we grow and as we enter into peace and balance within ourselves, within our soul, within our spirit, that we can actually rewrite our history. Now, that doesn't mean to make stuff up, right? And you just imagine it completely different. But what you do is you look at it really from heaven's vantage point. What is that silver lining? So instead of focusing on the negative, now you're more in tune to, right, maybe the beautiful colors or the flowers that were in the picture or the smiles of the children, right? So that you see with a different perspective. And, we can all do this experience where I can have, and, everyone right now, just close your eyes. And I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine walking into your grandmother's house. Now, most of you are not going to have trouble deciding which grandmother. There's going to be one. Just imagine you walking into grandma's house, right? Smell the smells, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel what you felt. Go into your grandmother's house. And now in that moment, I want you to picture your grandmother. And I want you to get a crystal clear image of your grandmother standing there wherever she is. She might be in the kitchen. She might be sitting in the living room, at the table, wherever she is. And I want you now to magnify her face. I want you to make her face bigger. I want you to make her smile brighter. I want you to bring grandma so close to you that you can actually smell her. And now quickly, I want you to look out the window. And what do you see looking out the window? Now come back to grandma. Oh, she's not so close anymore. Bring her closer. Make her face really large, her smile really, really big, her laugh really, really loud. And then you hear a sound of a glass breaking on the ground. And now you shift to find it. We can do that with our memories. But if we had started at grandma's house with you dropping a glass on the floor and it breaking, right? And that's the story that you tell, that every time you went to grandma's house, now your grandmother didn't like you or your grandfather, and they just yelled at you because of that one moment in time, right? Instead of focusing on all of the other aspects. But we do this. We have to rewrite our story sometimes. because we live our life through an experience of the past, and we don't shift the story until there comes a point in time in our lives where we then have to decide to choose to be happy and to live audaciously well. Anyone have any thoughts on that? How was Grandma's house?
I found it interesting that when you said it wasn't hard to pick a grandmother's house, I think that more generally we do pick one over the other, and different memories or fondness of memories that are there. Maybe you only had one, but that you remember. But it made me shift as soon as I was at one grandma's house. When you said that, I was like, oh, I wanted to see if I could go into my other grandma's house, and I was able to do that. So
Isn't that interesting? Gula, what about you? What happened with that exercise?
Well, it wasn't my grandma's. I was at my great grandma.
Oh,
That's where I went because my grandparents didn't play a big part in my life. It was my great grandma, and she doesn't smile much, or never really did smile much. She was this stern woman more, but same loving energy there. She always was happy to see us, but she never really laughed out loud, or no, that was not her.
you had to go searching for a memory where you could see her smiling or laughing. Interesting. So what's it going to take? What's it going to take? And so, Robin, Gudla, what happened for you? Because you're both two very positive women that have literally been through hell and back. I mean, Gudla, you and I were friends when Cornelius had his big accident, and that wasn't a little thing. That shook everybody's world. And I can't imagine how it shifted yours, and you made some extreme shifts in your lifestyle, the way you chose to live, the way you're living. Robin, you had many things, but a very traumatic death of your son a number of years ago, and everything shifted, right? Both of you chose very purposefully that these situations were not going to take you out and bring you down and cause you to live lesser of a life. So ladies, I'll just open it up. How did you do that? How did you make that choice?
Well, I think, if I may start, Pat, if that's all right. No, it's Robin, sorry. After, when my husband had the accident, and we finally got him after 2 years functioning so that he can work on his own happiness again by himself, I got sick because I was a caretaker and I didn't take care of me. So I ended up in a hospital, and they couldn't find anything wrong, but my iron levels, they were in the dumpsters. And I'm just, oh shit, iron, willpower, I see where this is coming from. And then he goes, you can have a blood transfusion if you want to. I said, no, just give me a piece of paper and I'm gonna go. I know what I have to do. It's just, I got up, went out of there, and I fasted for 3 days because I sat literally on the sofa thinking, Gudla, do you want to live or do you want to die? Where do you want to go with this? You are not taking care of yourself. So I was literally watching an infomercial on TV with David Wolf and the NutriBullet. And so since I have an issue swallowing like supplements and stuff like that, I can't get those pills down. So I was sitting there and thinking, oh, wow, NutriBullet. I put all my stuff in there, my vegetables, and I can just put the pills in there and I can just chuck the whole thing down and I'm going to be good to go. So the same day I ordered that NutriBullet, and ever since, I did smoothies 2-3 times a day. After first I fasted, I think, for a good week, and then I did my smoothies, and I was literally losing weight left, right, and center because I was losing, how should I say it? my worries. I was just I made the decision. I want to get healthy. I get healthy. That's it. The same if you want to go to a doctor, your healing process starts when you made the choice to go to a doctor and find help. It doesn't help. It's not happening in the doctor's office. It happens the moment you decide I need to help myself, and you find your help. So yeah, so that was my thing. So I changed my diet completely. I was grain free for a good 7 years, I think, and then I snuck here and there some in again. And well, then menopause hit, and then the whole hormones shifted, and then certain foods are not anymore the same foods you needed before. So a lot of shifting happened after that. But the main thing what happened after Cornelius had his accident is that my lifestyle needed to change. I started dancing regularly. I went to Zumba 3 times a week. I went. It was just about me feeling the joy inside, and when you dance, you connect with those. You connect with your sexy little self again, right?
You said it. You said it.
You get your hips moving. You start feeling so incredible, joyful within your body, just moving. And well, if you have a really good instructor, she's just encouraging that side of you to come out. And that's what happened to me. So I took that one step at a time, and well, I went to see Roxanne for fine tuning. And then other things happened, like we lost our house, and then last year the silos fell in the barn, and so more trouble down the way. But your reactions, or my reactions, started to shift. It was not always like after we had how do you say that, there was an environmental
I forget what it's called.
Disaster happening on the farm, and because some service industry didn't do their job, and I'm not allowed to talk about it. So we had to leave our farm, move to have a house somewhere else, and then travel to work. And we were stuck again in a victim mode until we finally said, this is enough. They jerked us around for 2 years until they decided that that the house needed to be torn down. So we moved off, and just we asked for a payout for the house so that we can start anew. And the moment we decided not to be the victim again, we started healing again. So this year, when the whole barn got in this big storm, got damaged, we didn't even go into the victim mode. We just said, this is how it's going to be. This is what we want. And do that, like to the insurance companies and stuff like that.
It's very interesting when you can shift your mind and look at the world from a different perspective, right? Because when you've been through a lot of stuff, you can either decide to live feeling crappy and angry and, indignant, right? Or you can be like, oh, okay, what's next? I have to say, Gudula, I mean, I saw your old house, but the silver lining is your new house is literally a sanctuary. I mean, I don't know how you find it. I think God just gave it to you as a gift from heaven. But man, I would move there like tomorrow. Like, it is absolutely the house, the property, the tranquility. Like, God moved you out of that crazy chaos into just absolute, just amazing bliss, really.
Yes, bliss is actually the word that was in my mind too. It's actually where I landed. And I created now paths in my forest so I can go and walk with my little sidekick, AJ. I have a little Australian Shepherd who's keeping me company out there on the trails. I am in nature every day. I have a huge freaking garden, and I create. I started creating a lot of things, like from not just my knitting, what I always did, but I'm building things. I have lots of obelisks in the garden, I have crystals everywhere in the garden now, and copper sculptures, and just things that enrich me. And it's enriching me. And in the end, I'm not looking to enrich someone else's life. It just fits right there and it belongs there.
Well, and a couple of things out of that, before we get Robin's response is when we enrich ourselves, we are able to share out of a full cup to those around us. And women, we forget about this all the time. We have to enrich ourselves, take care of ourselves, find the pleasure. And I said it in my book, I'll say it again, that women are made to create. It's this generative power. So whether you're creating life through having a baby or multiple babies, whether you're gardening, whether you're pottery, whether you're singing, whether you're music, but women are born to create. It feeds them and fuels them in such a passionate way, but also brings mentally emotional balance as well. Robin, you like to create beautiful, aesthetically pleasing homes, rooms, seating areas that are literally, I'll say, eye candy to all of the senses. It's not just, oh, that looks neat. The rooms that you create draw you into, oh, she's gone, draw you into an experience. Right. And so we'll get her to talk about that when she pops back. So Gula, what else do you want to share about why it was necessary for you to be happy and create that happiness?
Well, as I think one of our jobs in life is to demonstrate a happy life, demonstrate and teach the next generation that there's a path to an inner peace that you can achieve with living those things that are right for you. It doesn't mean it is right for anyone else. It just has to be right for you. And once you're really true to this idea, what makes you happy, things just literally fall into place.
Well, literally, why are we living somebody else's life? Right? Like, we don't live our life to, make others happy about how we're living our life. Right?
No,
like,
that's not the plan.
But look at how many women do that. We have to measure up. We have certain standards. We have to be like all of the other women, right? Instead of living our own life and just doing our own life well.
Yes. The one thing I find is my purpose I have now is to teach all those incredible things I learned to the grandkids. Going in the garden with them and when Connor was 2, he helped me water the garden. But now when he was 6, he not likes projects. So in the end, he comes along and he built orgone like orgonites with me. He loves it and took them all home and told his other grandma, these are all good energy, grandma, So he's the one spreading this. So it's just joy, just pure joy.
It is joy. It is. So, Robin, what about you? This creating? I think you dance. I don't know if you dance as much as myself or Gugla, but let's hear about why you decided after all of the tragedy you've been through to just choose a life of happiness and joy. And how did you make that decision?
Well, actually, it was a feeling I got, or I don't know, certain situation I was in. And after my son passed, I was obviously quite blue for quite a while and couldn't pull myself out of it. And I had told myself that I wasn't going to be that mom that disconnected from everybody and couldn't get past my pain and leave my other kids, kind of motherless, because I was dwelling in my own self-pity and grief. And it was easy to think, but not so easy to do. And I just remember, I don't know, just maybe moping around. I don't remember the exact situation that I was doing, but my husband and my kids were off doing their own thing. And it was like he didn't check in with me to see if I wanted to join because he just assumed that I would not. And it really hurt me. It shook me to my core. It was a fear that rose inside of me that made me realize that if I stayed and dwelled in this place that I was at, that I was going to lose out on some of the best moments of my life and my kids' lives. And I didn't want that to happen. So I pulled myself out of my own darkness and started to engage and live basically in the beginning for my kids and be happy for my kids. And then as soon as I was able to do that, then I was able to see more joy in my own life. And it was a healing process. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't something that but it was a slap in the face. Like, I just remember being so devastated that I was going to lose, not like I already lost a son, but I was going to lose, even more if I wasn't able to pull myself out. So that was a big slap in the face for me. And then we had some more little tragedies kind of happening in our own family, and some mental illness and stuff, issues that were going on. And like, I can mirror what Guda said. I was such a caretaker in that time that I became very ill, and, going to the doctors, they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. It was running tests and stuff. They were giving me all kinds of medication that wasn't helping, was actually making worse. And one moment that I remember very, very strongly was I had gotten up in the morning and I felt fine. But as soon as I started to move, like, my body was like tingling really super weird, and had a shower, and had no mobility. And I honestly thought that I was having some kind of stroke or something. And by chance, I had a doctor's appointment. I mean, I drove my kids to school, which you probably shouldn't have done, but my mind was just focused, like, I'm going to the doctor. He's going to fix this, and I was convinced that I was having some kind of stroke. And he didn't seem to care. He's like, well, you don't look like you're having a stroke. And he, put the little finger thing on to take my blood oxygen level, and it was low and stuff. And I left that doctor's office feeling so defeated and so low. And I knew my body, and I'd never felt that experience before. I took my own healing into my hand like Gouda and said, okay, do I want to live or do I want to die? Because if I'm not here to, raise my kids and stuff, like, what's going to happen to them? Again, it was my kids that kind of pulled me out of, my slumber there. And I went on my own healing journey. And of course, I'm blessed with having a sister, and she helped me with my mother-in-law years ago. And I just fell back on the knowledge that I had gained from that, and really tried to just live a better, happier life. And it's really hard when you have a lot of trauma around you and in your family, but you do have to find moments. You do have to find ways to heal and to be happy.
And, I think it's important, both, Robin and Gula were sharing, relationship, challenges and trials. Gudula had some physical things as well with, the farm and the barns and silos. But, this applies. I think everyone, we can hear that this also applies to what's happening physically as well. It's not just the mental, emotional. This is very much, like, how often do ladies get a diagnosis and your whole life falls apart? Right. And everything else you block out, you disappear from your relationships, from your children, from your spouse, from your girlfriends, and you stop engaging. It's why I write about this again. Like, we have to understand what we're doing. We're literally making our own situation worse because it's as if we're already dead. Yes. Right. We are no longer partnering with life. We're no longer engaged with our own life. And this is so devastating to me because I lived that. right? And when I see other women going through that, all I want to do is like, come on, like there's so much life to live. Like, how can we get you partnering with your life and choosing, right? Choosing to move, right? We talked about that right at the beginning. Gudula, you've mentioned this moving, moving, moving. And Robin, in your own way, you mentioned moving too. You said you would, just sit there and not engage, and you weren't going on the family adventures. Movement is life.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just started exercising and stuff again. I didn't want to, and everything in my mind just said, "Oh, you don't like it. It's so boring," and whatever. But once I was doing it, I felt so much better. And I don't dance, like you said, as much as I used to, and that's something that actually me and my husband used to do quite often on his days off and stuff. Is have a few little dance parties and stuff, and we've mentioned that we need to get back to that because you get so caught up in routine and all the things that need to be done in life and the house, the kids, this and that, and you kind of put all those things to the side. And yeah, it's maybe silly, and it maybe makes you feel a little bit weird at first, especially when you haven't done it for a long time. But once you start, you realize how much fun it is. And like I had mentioned before, like even our kids with their video game systems, I'm not a strong advocate for video games. I think that can take a lot of young minds and control them, but it has I think it's called a Wii or something, where it's like you're doing activities, golfing and different adventures, climbing, and you have to do obstacle courses, and there's a dance one. And
Yeah.
we really enjoy doing that as a family together. It's silly, and at first everyone's shy and they're barely moving, but then as the competition gets more fierce and you really start giving her and stuff, and you're sweating and you're laughing, and it's memories that the kids are just howling at you on the couch. But you got to do that kind of stuff.
We have one, I think it's some kind of Olympic Games, but curling is one of them. If you know me, I love curling. I am so passionate about it. I could close my eyes right now and I can feel the glide of the ice. I can hear it. I mean, it's like a whole experience for me. And one of my goals is to get back curling. But when my Mr. Wonderful and I do curling on the Wii, it's like I'm there. And if you ever curled with me, I'm very aggressive and I'm very loud. And I'm like trying to sweep, and I'm like, hooray! And I'm yelling at the thing, and it's like I'm there. And I remember the kids when we were first playing it. Of course, we were having a date night, which meant all the kids had to go to bed first. And it's like at 10 o'clock at night, and I'm literally screaming, hooray! Hurry hard! And I'm like freaking out. And the kids come running in the room, and they're like, is Mom okay? And my husband is howling, laughing, and he's like, yeah, she's just curling. None of you have experienced that yet.
Curling is fierce competition in our family.
Truly. So each of you give me like 3 tips for living a happy, fulfilled life for a woman, right? What would you encourage our listeners with today to live a happy, fulfilled life? 3 top tips.
Well, for me, number one is every second of the day, every minute, every new morning, you have a new choice to make a different choice in the direction you want to go. Even if you at one point catch yourself that you did something or said something you shouldn't have, a second later, you can turn that around. You have minute by minute choices to make that can be better. So you don't have to dwell on the bad stuff. You immediately can turn that around into the best ever. That is my number one.
Perfect. What's your number 2?
Yeah, I'm thinking because number two can be number 1 too. Never communication. Don't assume shit. Ask, even if it's difficult to ask, because it's a mother-in-law or it's the whatever, where you have a complicated relationship with. clarify stuff, ask them, hey, how did you mean that? Or, I just think I took that the wrong way. Could you elaborate on? Prepare yourself little sentences for this stuff, because sometimes, the emotions take over, and you need to have one of those questions or answers ready.
Oh. Yeah. And one more hot little tip for living a happy, wonderful, fulfilled life.
Never go to bed angry. So you can always get up with the best intention every morning.
Yeah.
Like if there's something to be resolved between you and your partner, for example, or your kids, do that at night, because you digest everything that goes on in the daytime. You digest it in your sleep. So if you have a resolution at night, you can actually get a peaceful night of sleep.
Yes. Very important. Okay. Robin, top 3 tips for living happy, well, vibrant, fulfilled life.
I think that there's a lot of women that need to hear this, but self-care, whatever that means to you, whether it's, having a bath or, going for a walk in nature, anything that you can do that provides peace and tranquility in your mind, where you can be alone in your thoughts and get to know yourself more. People have been asked hundreds of times what makes you happy, and most women can't answer that, because their whole world revolves around their kids and their husband, their jobs, whatever takes their full attention. So I think self-care is probably on that very top of the list. Second would be to laugh and to engage with your family, and it's not always so serious. Seriousness has a place, and you need to have those conversations, but I think that you also have to have easy and fun and loving conversations with your kids, with your spouse, and with yourself, and with your community and stuff. And laughter is a big part of that. To be able to laugh at yourself, and that just the whole thing about around laughter is just, it's really good, and it sends out so many positive endorphins into the body. And if you can't find ways to laugh, then turn on a comedy show or something. I don't know, like, you just have to laugh. And third, I guess, would be to get outside in nature, to really look at the beauty around in your world, to find positive things every day, things that you count your blessings, I guess, kind of saying, like, always look for the positive in life and stop dwelling in the negative. Stop listening to people on social media or the news or anything that brings you down. Those things are always going to be there. There's always going to be trauma and world events and family fights and stuff like that, but always try and look for positive things. And if it's as simple as going out in nature and looking at the trees, then that's what you need to do.
And so I love that. Yeah, I think, number one, shift your focus, right? The reason that we tend to see a lot of pain in our world and around us is because that's what we look for. But imagine if you sought pleasure, right? If you sought pleasure in every experience. And I don't mean, like sexual pleasure, but just something that's even visually appealing or auditorily appealing or kinesthetically appealing. What's the pleasure in this day, in this moment, right? And to seek that out. Robin, you've mentioned a few times about, taking pictures, right? Every day, take a picture of the best part of your day or something that, was joyful in your day. And that way you're looking for it. I've said this before, we don't see healing because we don't seek it. We actually don't look for it. We roll over, play dead, let the medical system do what they're going to do, and we're not actively engaged. And so for me, I think my next one would be let your yes be your yes and your no, your no. And, the Bible says this too. That's right out of scriptures where, if you commit to something, ladies, if you commit to being well, let your yes be your yes, right? Whatever it takes. Gudla said she didn't go to the parties, right? So, you know what? Let your yes be your yes. If you've decided to work out every day or to dance every day or to drink water or to go to bed before 10, do it. And similarly, if, let no be your no. So if you said no, why are you going back and saying, oh, I feel so guilty. I guess I should go anyways, when you know it's going to suck the life out of you to go to that event because you're so exhausted, right? And then I would say, move every day, because movement is life. Movement is freedom. Movement is flow. Our whole realm, our whole earth, our world is designed to flow and move, right? We've got ebbs and flows of whether it's the water, the sun, the stars, all of this stuff. We are also designed to move. Part of the depression or the low feelings that we feel can be simply because we're not moving through our day. We're stagnant, we're frustrated, we're angry, we're just muddy. Get moving. Go dance in the rain. Go dance in the rain. So, any last minute thoughts from either of you?
Live your best life, and always find ways to laugh, and kind of what you said, say what you mean and mean what you say. So
Yeah.
I really like the say that when you mean yes, you mean yes, and when it's no, it's no. That is, I concur. That's one of my principles. It's
Yeah.
not a maybe. Life is not a maybe.
Mm,
You have to show up.
yeah.
What's the purpose of not showing up?
Yeah.
What's the purpose in sitting in front of the TV all day? What's the purpose of watching things that disturb you all day? There is no purpose in that. You have to go out and find just those things that make you happy.
Yeah. Exactly. Ladies, be the best you. You were created to be you, not anyone else. Everyone else is taken. So step into yourself today. Step into who you truly are. Maybe you need to decide who you are. Maybe you need to decide what needs to shift, what needs to be thrown off. Maybe you need to get a new wardrobe called hope, peace, joy, strength, happiness, whatever that is for you. We just want to pray. Father, we just thank you for this amazing day. We thank you for every woman and for the new clothes she's going to wear, where she is one of hope, of joy, of faith, of peace, of just balance and movement and flow. We thank you that she is bold and courageous, and that today is a good day to be alive. And we just ask that you would encourage everyone in that, in Jesus' name. Amen. Goodla, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure, and to hear a little bit more about happiness and joy and how we can live in happiness despite our circumstance. Robin, is always amazing to chat with you. Ladies, be audacious. Take your life into your own hands and create your own beautiful life in all that you do. Have an amazing day, everyone.